We are live. Good evening, Broncos country. Let's give it a minute for stream to breathe. And we are good. Welcome in, everyone, to another installment of the Orange and Blue View. I am one of your hosts here, Ron White. Joining me on that side is my co host, Dylan. How are you doing today on this lovely Saturday, Dylan? We got some good playoff football going. I mean, we saw the Ravens won their divisional matchup, and I believe the 49ers are about to kick off. So, but how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I got off work early, had to go out and do some family things, but I came back, caught the second half of the Ravens game, and my brother is a pretty big Ravens fan. So, a little house divided, but that's all right. Um, but yeah, just ready to talk football on Saturday night, man.
Yes. And we are glad to have everyone join us. We have top rope superstar coming in here, David Yonkin. Thank you, David, for coming in. You know we appreciate you, my man. He says, if everyone is wanting to move back in the draft, do you guys think that we should draft the best players available, like edge, corner, or tight end? Thank you, David. Again, yeah. So I think for me, it's if guys are moving back, I think BPA is the way to go. This I think we've said it repeatedly that pick any position group here, Dylan, on this roster. I think there's a need everywhere.
Yeah.
So we can talk defensive line, especially on the interior, corner, tight end, maybe even looking at wide receiver. And, the quarterback obviously has been the topic of discussion. I know we'll get to an article and news that has transpired as it pertains to the quarterback implications possibly for Denver. But yeah, I would say if there is an edge there that is available that is high on the Denver Broncos board, go get him. If there is a corner, and I know some of the recent mocks, um, a few mocks have had, I think, corner Arnold from Alabama
Mm-hmm.
mock to him. Latu also was another recent mock draft that came up from UCLA that has also been mocked to the Broncos. But again, whoever is there that is the best player available, because again, this roster is in need of all kinds of talent. I would say go get them. What do you say, Dylan?
Yeah, I think a trade back is definitely the way that I would go personally in the draft. And I know in the mock draft, sitting at 12th, taking a corner, I would absolutely hate that because we have PS2. Damari Mathis, although he hasn't really panned out, and we spent 2 third-round picks on Riley Moss, who hasn't even really seen the field. So we have investments in the corner position, but I think they just need to be coached up properly. So taking one that high would scare me, but trading back, I think I could definitely bite the bullet there.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Dylan. I think just for me, David and Dylan, it's just going to depend on who is all there. Now, again, I said best player available, but if Brock Bowers is there at 12, I'm running up to the podium. I'm not
Uh,
I'm not thinking about it. I'm not hesitating. I'm taking my card. Goodell, we're ready.
I hear you
you
there,
know,
man.
you know. Again, depending on again, I think corners are going to go a little bit later on. But yeah, if you do trade back and maybe get a corner, that's a possibility as well. But I would say the three um, positions that we should be looking at, the Denver Broncos need to be looking at: quarterback, edge, and defensive line. Those again, those are the most important or most positions of need, important positions of need for the Broncos for sure. Let's see who we got. We got Kevin Gray coming in. Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate you, my man. He says, "Evening, Ron and Dylan. Big mile high salute to Broncos country. DB for life, MHH for life." Again, Kevin, thank you for coming in. We appreciate you. And you have another comment here stating that I hope They get a great D lineman. Yes. So again, that has also been, you know, a weakness on this Broncos defense, defensive line. I've talked in length with, Eric Trickle. I know there's a few articles out there on Mile High Huddle as it relates to the defensive line depth and kind of what the Broncos should do at defensive line. And we've talked about it, Dylan, as far as the weakness in that interior, right? We want the Broncos should think about drafting defensive linemen or even picking up one or two pieces in free agency that can stop the run. That has been the bugaboo for this Broncos defensive line. And picking up, there are a few free agents out there. I believe DJ Reader is a possibility. Christian Wilkins from Miami is out going to be on the free agent market. Sheldon Rankins from Houston. So, if the Broncos want to look at fortifying the defensive line, there's a few free agent pieces that they can consider, but also the draft. But you have to have someone um, besides Zach Allen out there on the defensive line to to wreak havoc, because we saw that they were just getting gashed at the point of attack. It was almost embarrassing with several of these games this past season.
Yeah, Zach Allen started off kind of slow, and slowly but surely he got better as the season went on. But he just can't be the only guy that's out there making plays, because everyone else is backup level, or they should be working McDonald's. It's and as far as it goes for free agents, um, we're obviously not going to be looking for top money guys just due to the Russell cap situation and whatnot. And when it pertains to the draft, I think it's a little more, at least from what I've seen, is a top heavy class. So you might want to go after those guys a little earlier. Like maybe you could target a few of them in a trade back. Because I don't think, especially a defensive tackle and defensive end, there's not a guy I'd really want to take at 12. But there's those two guys from Texas. I'd love to have either of those guys in the interior.
Yes, definitely. And we got the Ronk coming in, Michael Ronquillo. Thank you, my man, for coming in and supporting us as always. He says Kareem Jackson's last NFL game is over after the Houston Texans lost to the Ravens. Oh, okay. So I guess he made an announcement that was his last one. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, Kareem Jackson had just a great career. And even the stint, when he first signed with the Broncos, it was pretty good and pretty solid. But as he got older, players aren't the same; they age, and we saw that kind of come out in the wash on the field with in coverage. He was just abysmal.
Throwing his body around too.
Yeah, it's just yes. And throwing his body, we saw all the suspensions, and so I think he'll definitely be kind of known for kind of being that physical guy that just wants to attack the opposing players. But he had a great career for sure.
Definitely.
Yep. All righty. Thank you, Ron, for coming in with that tidbit of news. So we want to now get into one of our sponsors. So Little Caesars, everyone. So make Little Caesars the official pizza sponsor of the NFL, part of your game day. Now, obviously, we are in playoff mode, and it does suck that the Broncos aren't in the playoffs, obviously, but you can still enjoy the games with your medium pizza, your large pizza. It's always a big part of game day. So order online during the Pizza pregame, 1 hour before and 3 hours after NFL kickoffs, plus every day on Sunday, and get ready for some football and fun.
Choose your favorite Little Caesars pizza or pick up the toppings you crave. Either way, you win. Personally, my favorite is pepperoni. I'm pretty a simple guy, but sometimes I like to throw some peppers on there if I'm feeling frisky. And speaking of winning, everyone scores with convenient delivery or our in-store pizza portal pickup. So grab some friends and enjoy a few slices during the game.
Yes. All right, guys. So we want to talk about. I know there's been quarterback talk galore,
Oh
for
yeah.
the past several weeks now, and this show's not much different. So we are going to discuss. There's been some news that was announced, Dylan. I believe it was Thursday
Mhm.
that the quarterbacks coach for the Denver Broncos, Davis Webb, has been tapped to be the offensive coordinator at the East West Shrine Bowl. So, just for everyone, the East West Shrine Bowl is set to be held on February 1st in Frisco, Texas. He's going to be the OC of obviously with the West.
Ooh. Well, seems Ron is having a little trouble with his internet. But yes, the East West Shrine game is coming up. Um, and quarterbacks coach Davis Webb will be the OC for the game, which could give Denver the edge and getting an insight on some of the prospects that are in the game. The biggest name being Jordan Travis out of Florida State University. Had a very solid year. He threw for 2,756 yards, 20 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a 154.5 QB rating. He won't be participating due to his injury towards the end of the season, but he will be there for interviews, and hopefully Davis Webb could pick his brain, see just how his mind works, because in this Sean Payton system, he needs a quarterback who's very heady and smart, and hopefully that's him. He's got some mobility to his game as well. There's some other quarterbacks there too, like Kendall Slovis from BYU. He was formerly at USC, I believe, and he had a good freshman year there, and then he transferred, and he's been kind of up and down. But it'll be interesting to see what we can do with that game. Hello, Ron.
Yes, sorry about that, guys.
No worries.
No problems. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see, as it pertains to the Shrine Bowl for Davis Webb. A few different things here, Dylan. I want to bring up.
Mhm.
Um, you know, Obviously we'll get to see his offensive mind on display,
Definitely.
and what he's learned from Sean Payton, and some of the tips, tricks, working with Russell Wilson, and that could potentially lead to an OC job maybe at another team somewhere. So it's going to be interesting from that regard, and not only that, but it also uh, paves the way for kind of looking at these prospects or quarterback. So I know there's several different QB prospects out there. There's BYU's Keaton Slovis, there's
Mhm.
Kentucky's Devon Leary, and then there's Western Kentucky's Austin Reed. And obviously these aren't first, second, maybe even third round guys, but with the Broncos' possible need at quarterback, these are some guys and some names that one should look at. Also, Jordan Travis will be there, but as a lot of people know, with that gruesome leg injury he suffered um, with the Seminoles, he's only going to be available for meeting with scouts, coaches, and interviews. But yeah, I guess for Davis Webb, I'm excited, Dylan, just to kind of see again what he can bring, and I'm curious to see what some of these quarterbacks will bring as well. Um, Kind of seeing how they're playing, how they can read the defense, do the checks, and work with someone like a Davis Webb. So I'm very intrigued.
Yeah, he and he'll get to see how their minds work, and Unfortunately, Jordan Travis won't be playing, as you mentioned. Which, let's see going forward how that injury affects his mobility, because that was a big part of his game at Florida State. And not even just the quarterbacks too. I know Isaiah Pacheco came out of the Shrine game a couple of years ago, and Zay Flowers as well. But yeah, the important part for Broncos country especially is quarterback.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it'll be good. I'm actually waiting to kind of see what that game does yield. It should be exciting. We have Phil McLaughlin coming in. Thank you, Phil. It's always good to have you here, my man. He says, "Good evening, Ron, Dylan, and Deacon Scott. Any chance that we will offer Parker the DC position? VJ needs to go. Hashtag Buckham. Hashtag MHH for life. Hashtag Go Broncos." Yeah, Phil. I wouldn't mind. I think I don't. I'm with you, Phil, in the sense of I don't want Vance Joseph to come back either. Now, I do think that he is um just because of you got to credit that turnaround, Dylan. You know,
Mhm.
everyone was calling for Joseph's job, those first several weeks of the season. But with the end season turnaround, with the defense, you know, leading the league in takeaways and kind of showing that, aggressive ability during the season. I think that might be a reason for Sean Payton to want to keep him. Now, I'm not saying that I want him to stay, right? Because there are far better defensive coordinators out there. And yeah, Parker is definitely one of them. I mean, we've seen the growth of Christian Parker, as the DB coach here in Denver. So
Mhm.
again, if they were to offer him that, I'd be fine with it. With the familiarity, and I think he can get the best out of this defense more so than Vance can. But again,
Mhm.
I'm just thinking about what I think they will do, right? In the sense of retaining Vance Joseph, at least probably for another season, unfortunately, um, to kind of see where it goes and if that success on defense, if you want to really even call it a success, because there are a lot of different issues on defense, guys. Don't let's not get ahead of ourselves. But again, I think with the takeaways and that turnaround, I think that's going to be, I think, a justification as to why they keep. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's the likely scenario. Vance is gonna stick around for at least another year. Um, Obviously, that historic turnover streak they went on is a big part of that. Um, and the talent he had to work with, especially like we've already talked about on the defensive line,
Yep.
is just not up to snuff. And it's just amazing that he got that much out of him. That being said, there's still some things you'd like to see more. He was playing a lot of prevent defenses at times, a lot of off
Mm-hmm.
coverage with his
Yep.
corners. Um, and that being said, switching to Christian Parker would be ideal, I think, for the Broncos, especially with how he's developed DBs over the years. And I just like a young, fresh mind at defense. You see
Yep.
what they're doing with McDonald over at the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we get something similar out of that. Um, but yeah, unfortunately, and I don't think VJ's the worst guy to have, but I think is still a little bit of bias from head coaches past, if you will.
Yeah, I think there is, and you know, I know all of us are just wanting something better. I don't, we will never forget 70 points. No one's ever going to forget that, and that should definitely be. I know it was a while ago, but still, the fact that it happened, and just how the defense was so out of position, as you mentioned, right? There were a lot of plays off coverage, and I know some of it's with talent, right, on the back
Definitely.
end and in the defensive line, but I just think, there's some positions definitely there on the defense that should be upgraded. But again, I do think, Phil, that the Broncos will retain Vance Joseph. Mike again coming in, letting us know. Yes, thank you, Mike. Says Christian Parker got an interview for a defensive coordinator job. Yes, so I believe it was with the Patriots. That he got the interview with potentially working under new head coach Gerard Mayo there. So again, we Denver Broncos may lose him depending on what all happens there. All right, let's see. We got BK coming in. Thank you, BK, for your support. Much appreciated. He says we need to find a Roquan Smith. Ever since the Ravens traded for him, their defense went to another level. Their run D improved. Yes, BK. Linebackers like a Roquan Smith, like a Fred Warner. It would be so great to have those aggressive players, those speedy players, just running side. Dylan, the Broncos are missing a sideline to sideline linebacker. And that's what these people provide. BK, I was just watching the Ravens game, and plays where Roquan Smith just came up on blitzes and even in coverage. Roquan is so great, and I know he was good when he was with the Bears. But to your point here, even when he got to the Ravens, I think his play even went to another level. Now, granted, the Ravens defense was already good. Patrick Queen and obviously the rookie and Kyle Hamilton, right? So I think other players as well is helping Roquan kind of elevate his play. But you're right. I think with a sideline to sideline linebacker with help on that defensive line and more speed, in the line packing in coverage, I think that'll help improve the run game for Denver. Just because, there have been many times, Dylan, this year where that run defense was terrible. It was just not good at all. Like leaky, like gashing the opposing team was just gashing up the field. 9, 10, 11-yard runs. It was crazy. So, but yeah, BK, to your point, finding a speedy linebacker with some help in the interior, I think will definitely help improve this run defense.
Yeah, thank you again for the comment, BK. We always appreciate that. And yeah, a great linebacker like Roquan or Fred Warner, like you said, would be great. Problem is, there's only a few of those guys, and
Yep,
they're yeah, right, exactly, and they're very hard to find. And I think part of the struggles for the linebackers, I mean, Josie and Singleton, they're solid guys. I'm fine with them being starters. I don't love it. But with just how leaky the defensive line is, they're not getting a whole lot of help. And yeah, I just for me, it's goes back to just building that defensive line, and on defense specifically, I just see linebackers as a cherry on top. I know a lot of people want to put an emphasis on a linebacker that can cover a tight end. There's not many that can do that. You can slow them down, you can scheme around it, but the tight ends like Kelsey and especially under vision, they're just going to get their catches. And I think looking for that shutdown inside linebacker for at least coverage specifically is a little unrealistic, but I think we definitely need some thumpers for the run game.
Yes, most definitely, most definitely. All right, so now we turn to speaking about the second sponsor for the night, which is Factor. So get started on your resolutions with Factor, so you're ready for the new year. Factor's ready to eat meal delivery takes the stress out of your meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year and during this playoff season. So you can skip the grocery stores, all the meal prep work, all the cooking stress, the fatigue, and instead get chef crafted, dietitian approved meals delivered right to your home. With over 35 different meals to choose from per week, including options such as Calorie Smart, vegan, vegan veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add ons, you'll have a ton of nutrition and flavorful options to kickstart your New Year's resolutions.
Skip the stress of meal prepping with Factor. Choose from more than 35 weekly flavor packed, fresh, never frozen meals that support a healthy lifestyle and meet your meal preferences, all delivered right to your door and ready to eat in 2 minutes. This January, get Factor and enjoy eating without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor packed meals delivered to your door. Ready in just 2 minutes, no prep, no mess. Join Mile High Huddle in making Factor a way of life 365 days a year.
Yes, head to factormeals.com/huddle50 and use our code huddle50 to get 50% off. That's code huddle50 at factormeals.com/huddle50 to get that 50% off. All right, guys. We have the boss coming in
Hey.
with the chat. Thank you, boss man. We appreciate you. He says Ron and Dylan Little Caesars fun. Thank you very much. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you,
that.
Chad.
Thank you, Chad. And then we got Keith Brugman coming in. Thank you, Keith, as always, for supporting us coming in with the chat. He says, How does David Webb get voted to be OC at the Shrine Bowl? Help me make sense of this. Yeah, Keith, I think it's, I think it's, again, he's 28, so he's young. And I think they're looking at some of these young, fresh minds, across all the platforms, whether it be OC, quarterbacks coach, they probably put in there Dylan. They probably also thought about some wide receivers coaches running. Right. So I think they kind of want to look at young, rising offensive minds to kind of be that OC, because again, these are obviously young players that are going to be here for the prospects. So kind of having that young mind pairing with these young prospects, it's kind of, again, that's my take on it. It's why I'm thinking that he was maybe kind of high on the list as far as that selection.
Yeah, you never know who's going to be the next up and coming coach, and Davis Webb sitting under Sean Payton is definitely going to be to his benefit. And also, whether it makes sense or not, I'm not going to question it, because we get to look at some of the prospects coming up in the draft. And
Yes.
like I mentioned earlier, players like Zay Flowers, Isaiah Pacheco, Aiden O'Connell for the Raiders was there as well. Tommy DeVito.
Was Brock Purdy there too?
He was
Yes.
indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you never know what kind of players you can find there, and it's good to have someone who's going to be hands-on, especially on the offensive side of the ball, where we're looking for more than two playmakers, I'd say.
Yeah. All right. Let's see, kind of Scott in the chat. We have Phil again. Thank you, Phil, for coming back in with your question or comment. Hey, he says, "Okay, guys, you're on the clock for the 12th pick. No quarterback is available. Pick one: Terrion Arnold, Brian Thompson Jr., or Zahn Newton." I'm going with Arnold. If I had to choose, from one of those three, it would be Arnold. Arnold is, and I like him over Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid is good as well. But I think Arnold is a little bit more sticky as a corner, more of a ball hawk, in my opinion, as a corner. And I think he'd be perfect opposite his fellow Crimson Tide member and Patrick Surtain. So I think with, again, as you mentioned, Phil, right, of look at any position group, you pick whatever you want. If we're looking at these three options here, mine would be Terrion Arnold. What about you, Dylan?
Yeah, that's definitely a really good pick. Definitely lacking in corner talent. I mean, we don't know what Riley Moss is yet, but hopefully he'll see the field. But for me personally, because I mentioned earlier, taking a corner at 12 is not really something I'm looking to do since we've invested so much there already. I want a weapon, and Brian Thomas Jr. is the perfect pick for me there. If it's between those three, um, but he's a big receiver, 6'4", 205. Yeah, I know he's very fast from what I've seen, and a vertical threat for the outside. And he's even played some in the slot as well. I'd be excited just to add some. This offense needs a spark so bad, it's insane. And Sutton just can't be the only guy making plays out there.
Yeah, Brian Thompson Jr. is also a great pick at at 12. I wouldn't for me. I wouldn't want. I think I would maybe move back. And I don't know if he's going to be there, but maybe move back a few and then maybe try to get him
I
if he's there.
mhm,
Because from LSU is always Malik Neighbors is your guy, and I'm pretty
mhm,
sure by 12 Malik
definitely.
Neighbors is going to be off the board. But yeah, Brian Thompson, you're right. I think with the offense, you're right. Another playmaker definitely would bolster this offense. I think with the offense though, Dylan, they need to figure out this running game though. Again,
Hmm.
any weapon will help. We talk about Brian Thompson, obviously Brock Bowers, any type of receiving or pass catcher will help. But I
Hmm.
think this running game has just been lacking. Like the Broncos they couldn't get the running game going. So I think if that can get fixed somehow, going into the offseason into 2024, um, with Pookie and P Ryan and maybe I don't know, they probably add a running back, right?
Hmm.
If they can kind of get this running game going, that probably can set up the pass. And then yeah, you'll start to see hopefully more than a Sutton become involved, right? Depending on Sutton there. I don't know about the Tim Patrick situation. We'll also want Mims to take that next step too.
Hmm.
So yeah, another receiver would be good. It's just a matter of I think you know some other issues on offense need to get resolved as well.
Yeah, definitely. That run game has been non-existent.
Yeah, 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 most definitely. Yeah, need to get that run game fixed. It's just been
Just
it's been bad.
explosion all around the offense, man. We need it somewhere. Run game, pass game,
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah. I mean, again, as great as Sutton has been, we just can't have balls thrown Sutton direction all the time, right? We again,
Hmm.
I always stress that we need to always have someone step up, and
Hmm.
fans were hoping that Jared Judy would have taken that next leap. We just didn't see it come to fruition, and he's gonna be, it's gonna be shocking if he's not gonna be on this team next year. And so hopefully with Mims, coming into the fold a little bit more. And again, as you point, if you draft a receiver, which I'm pretty sure they will, hopefully that'll open things up. But only time will tell. All
Hmm.
right. Let's see here. Who else we have? I love the draft talk, guys. I love this time. Now again, I
Yeah.
don't think we're as well versed as our senior draft analyst with Eric Trickle, but we can try to answer these as best as we can here. We got the Ronk coming back in. Jared Verse, yes, from Florida State. He is also good.
Hmm.
I would say he is, for me, he's my number one edge. I think I'll put him at one, and I'll put Dallas Turner at two. Um, but yeah, I again, Mike, edge again, another position of need here. If we were to get edge at 12, I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't, because again, we need someone. We need an elite player that you can just tell go get after your quarterback, Dylan.
Mm-hmm.
We don't. The Broncos don't have that right now. Again, the edge has kind of been the sum of their parts with the Benito and Baron Browning and Jonathan Cooper. Right, but you need like a Von Miller. You need that elite star pass rusher to wreck the game. And Jared Verse is definitely one to do that. What are your thoughts on Jared Verse?
Yeah, I think he'd be a great addition to this team. Like you said, we need someone explosive off the edge and a true star. Like, well, there's no stars on this defensive line, and I think Jared Verse would bring a lot to this defense. And the pass rush complements the secondary as well, giving them time to coverage. Because if Pat Surtain's sitting out there the whole time, having to hold a guy for more than 3 to 4 seconds, there's a chance he's going to get burned. That's just the corner position. And if you can get some pressure off the edge, that greatly increases their chances.
Yes, most definitely, for sure. All right, let's see. Kind of skimming the chat here, and again, it's just us guys, no Mr. Producer tonight. So just bear with us as we kind of comb the chat. I think we've answered this kind of in some of our other draft talk, but again, David, thank you for coming in, Yonkin. We'll look at this and revisit it again because again, draft talk is fun. Dylan and Ron, if we don't get a quarterback at 12, who would be your choice to go after? Yeah, David, again, it's really just going to depend on how the board falls. How the Broncos look at or how they rank each player at each position. Now, again, for me, players like if Brock Bowers is there, if I would maybe think about Teron Arnold as I alluded to earlier. If there's maybe like even Malik Neighbors if he's there, right? I would consider those three at 12. So yeah, if we're trying to stay down pat at 12, those are the three. If they're still on the board, I would consider. Now, if none of their players are there at 12 that they scouted that went earlier, then it's a matter of, well, who obviously finding that trade partner, see who we can trade back with, and then accumulate more picks and then maybe get someone of value later. So, David, it's all going to be about obviously who's on the board, best player available at the time you pick. But if we're talking non-quarterback, those would be my three that I'm looking at as far as who I would go after.
Yeah, definitely. Brock Bowers is obviously the name that sticks out there. You've sung his praises, and I love him too, man. He's just not just a tight end, but an explosive offensive weapon. And he's a pretty decent blocker too. Not the best in the world, but he's more than serviceable there. Some other guys I would look at, and I'm not sure. At 12, I'd like to trade back and get him, but it might be an underrated pick to go get a tackle. We don't know if Garrett Bowles is going to stick around. He might get traded. Who knows? Might get a J.C. Latham out of Alabama. Another couple guys. Tallahassee Fuanga, I believe that's his name, from Oregon State. He's also a very intriguing prospect. And Amarius Mims would also be a nice pick out of Georgia.
Yes.
But
yes, I do. Yep.
So one of the I would say maybe one of the three tackles, but if I'm going with my heart and who I really want, it's Brock Bowers for sure.
Yeah, and you bring up tackle, and that's an interesting one. We all know tackles aren't a sexy pick, obviously, but yeah, we don't know what's going to happen with contract situation with Garrett Bowles. Mike McGlinchey, just has not lived up to expectations. So, I'd be, thinking about a tackle as well. Again, I'm not sure Maybe at 12. I mean, I think with tackle for me, I would maybe want to trade back, accumulate more picks, and maybe pick up one later. But yeah,
Mhm.
tackle is definitely a position that the Broncos need to be considering. Definitely.
Mhm.
All righty. Good draft talk, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. We got David again. Thank you. Thank you, David, for coming back in with your 199 super chat. He says, which QB would you guys go after in free agency? I'll let you take that one first, Dylan.
Um, I think I mentioned it last week, but I think Jacoby Brissett would be a nice option. I think it'd be a great bridge quarterback. He looked good at times when he played for the Commanders this season. He came in for one game, I believe, week 17 for Sam Howell, and he brought them back in that game. He's got a little bit of mobility. He seems like a really heady quarterback. And I think he's just someone who would work very well with Sean Payton in this scheme. And obviously, when you're going to free agency, you're not looking for the guy, but someone who can run this offense. And I think he's the one to do it.
Yeah, that's a good pick. Jacoby Brissett is also on my list. I would also say, I mean, Jameis Winston is one that can be considered as well. And I look at Jameis Winston, guys, just for the familiarity, right? It's he's worked obviously with Sean Payne. He's worked. He knows that system. They're doing their days in New Orleans. So I think, yeah, you can't go wrong with Jacoby Brissett or Jameis Winston. I think they'll be perfect bridge guys to the new or the quarterback that the Broncos do draft, whoever they look at here coming up. So good question, David. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, let's see. There was one question up here I wanted to get to. Um, yes, Chris Rosales. Yes, this is an interesting question here. Thank you for coming with this comment. We appreciate you. He says, would it be a reach to say Simmons is more important in our defense and trading PS2 would be the smarter move in the long run? For me, Chris, that that's a reach. I just think for me it's a reach, just because I won't sit here and say Simmons is not important, because Simmons is very important to this defense. Um, his intellect on the field is very sharp, but you're looking at a guy who's getting older, and you're also looking at a guy. Ever since he's been a Denver, he hasn't been winning, and at his age now, getting older, maybe in a few years contemplating, hanging it up. Although I think he still has a few good years left in him. I just don't think with the direction of the team, Simmons may not be best from a long-term perspective. Now, again, if you can to keep him, again, I think I'm saying is if you kind of have to choose between PS2 and Simmons, I'm taking PS2 all day. But again, I hope the Broncos are in that position. Hopefully, we can keep Simmons for a few more years. But yeah, if you had to choose of which one, to offload or to trade, we trade Simmons. PS2 is a fundamental portion to this defense, and you build this defense around him. So that's how I see that. What are your thoughts there, Dylan?
Well, this is actually one of my friends who's tuning in tonight, and he's been
Nice.
asking me this question for a while. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, I would definitely say PS2 is the more important player. I think he's just a higher positional value at corner than safety, and like you mentioned, his age, Simmons. I mean, he's getting older, and for safety, just not someone you want to build around this late in his career. Not that he's not an old man or nothing, but he's getting up there for his position. And PS2 is the top corner in this league. I don't care what the Seahawks tweet
What the other
out.
rankings say. Yeah, the rankings.
Yeah,
Other teams, we don't care what they have to say.
yeah.
They don't
Did you
matter.
see? Did you see them post that graphic with Tariq Woolen and Patrick Surtain?
With Woolen, with Ricky and Sertan, yeah.
With
And I think
the
I saw Sertan go back on Twitter about. I think some information was even incorrect. So
yeah,
it just goes to show you.
the yards are wrong, and they forgot to
Yeah.
add how many times each got benched because Tariq got benched. He missed, I believe it was 182 snaps. But anyway, they get their licks in whenever they can against us. But yeah, definitely, I think PS2 is no pun intended, a cornerstone piece of this team.
Yeah, I mean, first round pick. I mean, we don't have to go over the numbers. You just see the play come out on the field. I mean, the guy is just special, and having him being tasked with just locking down the opposing team's number one receiver, it's such a fun thing to watch. So yeah, to trade that, I just don't think it would do the Broncos any good, because again, that just opens up another hole at cornerback one. Yeah. When you already, again, we were just talking about trying to have someone opposite of him. Now you trade him, right? That leaves that void. So yeah, I would say again, both are important. It's just a matter of I prioritize PS2 over Simmons. If a trade was inevitable, I would trade Simmons, keep PS2.
And he's as good as he was without much pressure from the defensive line. You see all the other guys getting the All-Pro honors and the Pro Bowls. They have all-star defensive lines in front of them for the most part. So what he does even more is impressive.
Yes, most definitely. All right, let's see. Got some. Oh yeah, we did got some head coaching talk with our rivals. Yep, Pierce with the Raiders. Although it's our rivals, but I'm actually happy that Antonio Pierce got the gig. I mean, he was able to kind of turn that team around just a little bit this year. That's good. And of course, Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers. I want to grab. Oh, yeah. I'm assuming.
Stay
that
in college,
one,
man. Stay in college. I don't want him in the AFC West. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't either.
Especially because Justin Herbert gets a lot of flack. Yeah, I just don't think he's had the right coach. And if they get Harbaugh, he's had success everywhere he's been. So no thanks.
Yeah, it's either with Harbaugh. It's a toss up between the Falcons and the Chargers. So we will see how that comes out in the wash. I'm with you though. I don't want him. I don't want him near the AFC West. Again, he's a stay away. So yeah, go to the Falcons. If you can. All right, let's see here. We got Phil coming back in. Thank you, Phil. And this actually ties also to another comment, which I'll get in here shortly from the Ronk. Phil says, I have a feeling that Cushenberry is going to be expensive to keep. So is Forsyth ready? I am not sure. So we will get McGovern. So we should get McGovern. He will be cheap and has had 60 PFF grade every season. And then I want to get into what the Ronk is saying, kind of beefing off that as well, Phil, of it's time to see what center Alex Forsyth has at the position. Yeah, we discussed this briefly. I believe it was last week, Dylan, in as it pertains to Cushenberry. And Phil, he's going to be expensive to keep. This year he has played himself into a new deal. And I think, again, given the situation with the Denver Broncos, given their cap situation and, that dead money and trying to keep and, re-sign players, I just don't see Cushenberry staying around because that play has warranted a new deal. So he will sign a contract, but unfortunately it will be with another team. And as far as Forsyth, I mean, they're confident. in the presser, I believe it was Printer, they were saying that they're ready for Forsyth. At least that's what I got from it. So the team is very high, very encouraged on Forsyth. Now, will he be ready? That remains to be seen. But looks like the team is ready to go forward. I do think they might bring someone in, Phil, to maybe help compete with Forsyth. McGovern it may be an option here, as you mentioned. Bring him in on the cheap and see, you can compete in camp, see what happens. Um, but yeah, it's Forsyth time to at least to start competing for that starting center role.
Yeah, and thank you, Phil, for coming back in. Um, yeah, I don't see us re-signing Cushenberry. Of course, he had to play good in the final year of his deal. Too good, in fact, that we won't be able to re-sign him. But yeah, George Payton and his presser spoke pretty highly of Forsyth, saying he could be a starting center in the league, which to me means he's going to be starting and Cush is gone. But I do agree that they'll probably bring in some help, whether it be free agent, maybe a guy later in the draft, because Forsyth was our very last pick in the 7th round. So don't know how much confidence we can have in that, except for what the coaches want to put out there. And as for McGovern, I'm curious if it's the Connor McGovern former Bronco or the one that was in Dallas that I believe is with the Jaguars now. But you'll have to let us know in the chat. But
Yep.
yeah, some cheap option would be nice to have at center.
Yeah, that's a good comment, Phil. Thank you for coming in. It's like you said, Dylan. It's so unfortunate that the year that Cushenberry decides to play well, it's kind of that contract
It's
year,
like,
and
whoa, slow
you
down,
might
dude.
be
Like, don't play
moving.
that good. Yeah.
Yeah, and so now the Broncos are going to be kind of hoping that Forsyth is that answer there at center. But again, only time will tell.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see. Oh, we got Unique Prepping coming in with a $4.99 super chat. The name here. Thank you. Says what I do is trade Justin Simmons and Jerry Jeudy. Try to jump to number 8 and get Penix. Then get Jacoby Brissett as a bridge and keep Stidham. Thank you, Unique. Let me get your thoughts on this one first, Dylan. Then I'll go.
Sure. Thank you, Unique, for leaving us a comment. We greatly appreciate that. So I don't think you're going to have to trade Simmons or JJ to get Michael Penix. I think he's going to be at the most late first round pick. I tend to think that the media and fans are higher on Penix than the NFL is, and we've seen that years before. I can't remember the quarterback specifically, but when Kenny Pickett came out, they were talking 3-4 quarterbacks are going to go in the first round, and fans loved them, analysts loved the quarterbacks in that class, and then only Kenny Pickett goes. So it depends on the perception from the league. So I think you could get Penix, possibly even the top of the second round, if need be. But what depends on is his medicals and how those show up at the combine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Dylan. I think with Penix, I think he's this year's Will Levis, where there was so much hype surrounding him. Like he's gonna go top 5, top 10. And the media hyped it up. You saw a few mocks coming out with him being like the number 8 overall pick, so on and so forth. And then we saw what happened in the draft, that he didn't get picked till later. And I think with Penix, you're gonna see something similar, where I think with him, again, the talent is there with him, but I think two things, right? We saw the last that last game. And
Mm.
with Penix, you have to have, well, I know every quarterback needs a stout offensive line, right? But I think with him it's even more important, Dylan,
Hmm.
that your offensive line is very stout and can hold up. And
Yep.
especially with him being a left-handed quarterback. Like I have nightmares sometimes because his blind side would be his right side. So if we still have McGlinchey, it's like, I don't know how I feel about that. Just
Yeah.
that pressure coming from that side. So
Hmm.
that again, I kind of think about that in Denver when I when I maybe think about him coming to the Broncos and being that quarterback. But yeah, unique trading again for me. Trading Jerry Judy, that's going to happen. Jerry Judy's no longer going to be
It's a
on this team.
foregone conclusion already.
Yeah, it's a foregone conclusion. Now, I'm not sure about it. Moving up. To get. I think it's going to be more of a. Maybe you see something. Free agency. I don't think it'll be anything with the draft. Because again, there's really not. Jerry Judy hasn't really proven. Kind of to be that guy. So.
Hmm.
He was a first rounder. Maybe you can get a second round back for him. We'll see. But um, Justin Simmons potentially
Hmm.
um, can trade. But again, given this cap situation, anything can happen. I would try to keep Justin Simmons personally. Maybe try to go to him for a restructure. Um,
Hmm.
as we mentioned, trade Jerry Judy. But yeah, I don't think we need the only quarterback that I'm trading up in that 7 or 8 range if he's still there is Jaden Daniels.
Hmm.
Like that would be my guy. I try to pony up a few picks for and try to trade up if you can. But outside of that, yeah, Penix, McCarthy, Bo Nix, you can get those guys later. Those
Hmm.
aren't really quarterbacks I would look at trying to jump up and move up for. Oh yeah, and definitely keep Stidham. Because I think
Yeah.
Stidham would be, he'd be a good backup in this case, right? Get Brissett maybe starting as a bridge, keep Stidham the backup. Sure, why not?
Hmm.
Yep, yep, yep. All right, let's see. Looking through the chat. All right, Dylan. I think that is all. I don't see any other questions, comments in the chat. So I think we could wrap it up for today. Again, guys, thank you all for joining another installment of the Orange and Blue View. It was great to have every one of you tonight to talk Broncos. And again, I love this draft talk, so keep them coming.
Hmm.
You can follow us on Twitter. So my Twitter handle is Ron White NFL, and then Dylan's is Dylan Von Arcs MHH. And then if you don't do anything, guys, make sure you subscribe and hit that like button for us. It means a lot to us on the show. It'll help all of us out. And make sure you tune in. Again, every day there is a podcast. You have a lot of the other draft experts with, Eric Trickle, obviously, and Lance Sanderson. Of course, Nick and Carl and Chad and Zach there as well. So make sure you tune in. And with that, we'll leave it up. Any parting words for us, Dylan, before we hop on out?
Yeah, just thanks for everyone for joining all our Super Chat Superstars, all the stars on Facebook. You guys are awesome. And thanks for sticking around for my second podcast. Glad to see no one hates me yet. But no, seriously, you guys are awesome. This makes my Saturday
Yeah.
night definitely worth being on
Yes.
here.
Yes, most definitely. All right, then. Well, we're out. And as always, guys, go Broncos. Have a great evening.
Go Broncos.